pose can be practiced with either the knees together or knees separated. For today's purposes, I'm going to focus on the version with the knees separated. And I also want to show you briefly what the traditional variation looks like. Not because it's the right way to practice the pose, but sometimes it helps just to understand what the key actions are and what you're kind of asking your body to do. Typically in class, you will transition into child's pose either from down dog or all fours. So we're going to start on all fours, shoulders stacked over the wrist, hips over the knees. Again, our knees are open about the width of our hips or slightly wider. We're going to bring our big toes to touch, and on an exhale, sink the hips back, get the bottom to touch the heels, extend the arms, fingers pointing forward, forehead rests to the mat. Now, as I said, that's sort of the traditional variation, but if you're coming to yoga because you have physical limitations or injury, that's not going to feel so good. So I want to show you how you can approach this pose with the use of props. So the first thing we're going to address is any discomfort in the ankles. A lot of times, if your ankles feel tight or just the weight of your body pressing on your joints in the mat doesn't always feel good. So a simple solution is getting a small blanket or towel and rolling it up to create somewhat of a wedge in between your ankles and the floor. So you'll just place it between your ankles, and this also elevates the heels a little bit. So for some of us, this is going to be enough of a modification, and we can rest our hips back. However, a lot of us still feel more discomfort in this pose, particularly in the knees. And especially if you feel the tension on the front of the knees, if you had an injury or maybe surgery or whatever the limitation might be, there are some really easy solutions. You're going to take a blanket, fold it in four, and place it in the middle of your mat. And next we're just going to sort of walk up our blanket here and rest the knees just slightly over the edge of the blanket. So as you can see, there is space between the front of my knee and my mat, so I can actually swipe my fingers between my knees and the floor. And now when I extend back, there's no contact, there's no pressure on the front of the knee. Again, that might provide enough support for you. You also could continue and have that support beneath the ankles if needed. Now, onto the back of the legs. Hamstrings are an area that are super tight for most people. So the idea of hinging back, also the hips are tight. That can start to prevent problems. And what I'll see a lot is the hips just kind of hanging in air and then people forcing and straining because we want so bad to get that forehead to the ground, but we're not getting the tailbone back, stretching away from the pelvis. We're not creating length in the spine when we do that. Super easy solution is to grab a pillow or again a blanket or a towel and place it behind the back of the thighs and rest it on your calves. So now when I sit back, I have a little more support and I've shortened the distance from my heel to my bottom. One pillow might work, it might not be enough. So in that case, grab another pillow and prop it up, as I like to tell my students. The more you prop up your pose, the better. So now I find even more support. And again, if 2 isn't enough, try 3, try 4. But the idea is we're filling the space in our pose here. So when I have tight hips and tight hamstrings, I can't get them back. I'm just kind of hanging out in dead air here. And then I can't fully relax and let go of tension in the upper body. But by adding support here, it's a lot easier. So next, we want to address the forward folding action in child's pose. Again, this can be challenging because your forehead may not comfortably rest on the ground. There's a couple basic variations where you can either bend the elbows and rest your forehead on the forearm or even stack your fist. But quite honestly, I'm not a huge fan of stacking the fist only because you're still creating a little bit of tension in the body. Essentially, we really want to let go in this pose. So I have a cushion from my sofa If you can take cushions from your sofa, I highly recommend doing that. They're a wonderful substitute for a bolster. If you don't have this, again, pillows, blankets, be creative. We can also use a little additional support beneath this pillow. If you have yoga blocks, grab them. If not, books will work. And this again is just creating height from the ground up. The key here is placing your pillow or cushion in your low belly, kind of in your pelvic region. And from here, we're just going to fold over our pillow. And you can rest your arms, either bending the elbows at your sides. If you wish, you can reach them out long. You could even extend the arms at your sides, fingertips pointing back. But whatever variation you take, it should feel super yummy, super good, like a little child balled up, ready for nap time. And once you do get here, I want you to focus and bring your attention to your breath and breathe into your back body. This isn't something that we often do day to day. So as you inhale, I want you to envision expanding your waist, expanding the sides of your ribs, breathing into the space behind your heart and your shoulder blades. And as you exhale, just soften those areas and let go. And if you do take this variation, make sure at some point you lift your head and turn it to the other side and rest there for an equal amount of time, just to keep things balanced. So I hope you found these tips helpful and useful. The most important thing to remember when practicing yoga is that you don't have to change your body in order to practice. It's all about adapting the poses to work for you. And once you stop fighting your limitations and fighting any restrictions in your body, that's when yoga can really begin. And you just start embracing yourself and finding space and breath within your body. And until next time, happy practicing. Namaste.